This video is a follow-up to our hip and low back workshop series. So you will want to grab a blanket, 2 blocks, and a yoga strap. Anybody can do this. This is a really nice practice for hip mobility and working on your core strength. So we are going to begin in child's pose. So if you turn to face your blanket, take your knees as wide as the edges of your yoga mat and feet together. Send the hips back to the heels and allow your head to come down on your blanket. So relax and let go completely, trying to let the hips melt down toward the heels, letting the arms be heavy. Try to soften the jaw, relaxing the neck. Breathe deeply in through the nose, out through the mouth, releasing tension, let go, and melt. Feel the pressure of the belly in between the thighs with every inhale. And try to relax the pelvis, the pelvic floor, the hips with every exhale. And moving with ease and intention, turn your head to face the other direction. Taking the ear down to your blanket, begin to relax even more, deepening the breath. Calming the nervous system with every exhale, letting go of tension. And then once again, moving with ease, take your forehead straight down onto the blanket. Create length through the back of your neck. Take one last inhale. And on your exhale, press your way up into tabletop. You can move your blanket off to the side. Let's stack the shoulders over the wrists, the hips over the knees. Begin to rock the hips back to the heels and then work your way back up to tabletop. So this is a hip mobility series that we're doing here, getting all 4 quadrants of the hip. And this series is particularly nice for the inner thighs to give you a gentle stretch. So pausing momentarily in tabletop, step your right foot out to the side. We want the foot in line with the knee. Foot is flat and toe points forward. Keep the chest proud, spine long as you rock back and forth. Feeling that mobility in the groin area. Feel that stretch, maybe from the knee, inner thigh, up to the groin. And 10. Great job. Other side, stepping the left foot out, foot's flat, toe points forward. Try to keep your hips stacked over the knee, chest proud, and begin to rock back and forth. Feeling that length that you're creating throughout the inner thigh. Try to square off both hips. So we don't want that left hip popping up. So if you rotate it downward, you might get a little more out of that stretch. All right, bring that knee back underneath the hip. Come on up to a tall kneeling position. I'll turn to face you. Step your right foot out to the side. The foot is kind of at a diagonal, so we're taking the hands to the hips, gliding that knee over the ankle, and returning to the start position. Okay, so keep both hips squared to the front. If you're feeling any pinching in the hip area, you can walk your foot forward. So we don't want to turn that foot out so much that we're creating a torque around the knee. So allow it to come at a diagonal. Great job. And we can switch to the other side, stepping that left foot out. Begin to rock back and forth, feeling that stretch throughout the hip. 9. And last one here, and then we will come back down onto the hands and knees. If at any point your wrists are bothering you, you can make fists here. Shifting your weight onto the left knee, extend that right leg up toward the ceiling. So we're almost like we're stamping our footprint up to the sky. Draw the belly into the spine to flatten out the low back. And you'll notice that that glute is really working. Turn and rotate the leg out to the side, trying to get that shin as parallel to the ground as it will go. And then lower back down. Taking that 3 more times. Up, out to the side, back down, up, out, down. Excellent job. We're going to do the same thing, but go in the opposite direction now. So this time we're going out to the side, up, try to keep that belly button drawn in, and down. 3 more times. Out, up, down. Really working that whole glute complex. Excellent job. You can take a moment to roll out those wrists. And then other side, come back down onto hands, knees, stamp your left foot up to the ceiling, draw the belly button in to make the spine nice and flat. Take the leg out to the side, shin is parallel to the floor, and then come back down. Taking that 3 more times, up, out, down. Great job. And I'll turn to face you so that you can see what it looks like from the front going in the reverse direction. So this time, taking that left leg out to the side, shin parallel, foot stamp up to the ceiling, try to draw the belly in to flatten out the spine, and lower back down. And 2 more. Excellent job. You can sit back on the heels, roll out those wrists if that feels good. And then coming back into our tabletop, walk the hands forward slightly. Coming into our downward facing dog, we want to set ourselves up for success. So index fingers face the front of your mat. Spread the fingertips out nice and wide. We're going to tuck those toes, hover the knees for a moment to engage the core, and then send the hips up and back, keeping the knees bent pretty generously. The goal of downward facing dog is not necessarily to get the heels to the ground, but it's to keep the spine nice and long. Draw the shoulder blades down the back, almost like you're sliding your shoulder blades into your back pockets. The head should be so heavy and relaxed that you could rock it from side to side, and then you can alternate pedaling out right heel, left heel. Okay, great job. Find some stillness here. Knees can be as bent as they need to be, or you can try to straighten them out a little more. Take your gaze up between the hands, and let's march your feet up to the top of your mat. Keeping those knees bent, we're going to inhale to sweep the arms up overhead into mountain pose. Exhale to hinge forward at the hips, coming into flat back. Slide your hands up the shins. Loop the shoulders down and back. We really want to pull that chest forward. So you should be able to balance a glass of water between those shoulder blades without it spilling. Take a couple of breaths here. Bend the knees, allowing the belly to make contact with the thighs. Squeeze your knees together, squeeze your hips together. Send the weight back into the heels, so much so that you could lift the toes. Reach those fingertips forward and peel the chest up for chair pose. In chair pose, we draw the belly into the spine to flatten out the low back. Okay. Soften the shoulders away from the ears. There's a lot happening here. Squeeze the knees, squeeze the glutes. On your exhale, go ahead and stand it back up. Finding mountain pose, rooting the feet down into the ground. Take both hands to heart center. Coming into tree pose, we'll shift our weight onto the right leg, taking the sole of the foot either to the inner shin or the inner thigh. The toe can touch the ground to give you some stability there, okay? Wherever you are, press the back of that bent knee toward the back of your mat. So that's going to turn on the glute muscle. Root down into all 3 points of the feet. So big toe, pinky toe, and heel. No sassy hip here, so we're lifting up and out of that hip, growing tall through the crown of the head. If you wish, you can reach those branches up and out. Also a lot happening here, but find that drishti, find that focal point. And then exhale, release, taking the feet and hands down to center. Okay, so stepping your left foot back behind you, finding your warrior two. So setting yourselves up for warrior two, you're bending that front knee. The front toe turns in slightly. If you take a peek down at your feet, that front heel should bisect the arch of the back foot. Okay? Reach the fingertips out long. Relax the shoulders as you draw the belly button into the spine. Take a nice deep breath here. And on your exhale, try to soften throughout the upper body. And then stepping off that back foot, or you can heel toe your foot back up to the top of your mat. We'll find heart center once again. Other side, shift your weight onto your left foot. Take the sole of the foot for tree pose either to the inner shin or the inner thigh. You can always come up against a wall too to give you some support, pressing that knee back toward the wall, lifting up and out of that hip, and then growing your branches nice and tall if that's in your practice today. Soften those shoulders and find all 3 points of contact in the feet, big toe, pinky toe, and heel. On your exhale, go ahead and take the hands to heart center, foot comes to the ground. Stepping your right foot back now, finding warrior two. We're gonna sink down into that front thigh. Angling your toe forward, and the front heel bisects the arch of the back foot. Reach out long from fingertip to fingertip. Soften the shoulders away from the ears and draw the belly into the spine. On your exhale, soften a little more throughout the upper body. Take the gaze down that front middle finger. And then we'll step off of that back foot to come up to the top of your mat. Great job. So while you're standing there in mountain pose, I'm just going to go over your setup for warrior two. So to find your warrior two, you're going to step your feet out to the side. Your feet are parallel. You can use a block to bring the floor up to you a little bit here. So we're taking the hands to the hips, growing tall through the crown of the head, and then hinge forward at the hips. This takes away the pelvic and lumbar mobility that we like to use in this pose. You can take your hands to the floor or your block, and go ahead and turn your left foot out as much as it will go. Keep that left foot planted as you come on up to standing. That is your foot position that is optimal for your hip mobility. And then you would bend that knee, work the back foot so we're finding good positioning, and then hit your warrior two. And then you can do the same thing on the other side to find that. Okay, so coming into our lunging sequence, we're stepping our left foot back, letting that back toe turn out slightly. Feet are on railroad tracks. We're going to bend that front knee slightly. Drive the back heel down to the ground. Sweep both arms up overhead. Relax the shoulders away from the ears. Draw the belly into the spine. I feel a nice stretch throughout the front of my left thigh, so the leg that's behind you. Squeeze that left glute to square off the hips to the front of the mat. Great job. Taking both hands down to the ground, or you can use your blocks to bring the floor up to you. Step that left foot back a little more. Both toes pointing forward. Sink the hips straight down instead of sliding forward. Okay? Lift that back kneecap. Squeeze the left glute. Press into those fingertips on your blocks to peel the chest up. If you want, you can take the blocks on their tall side to give you a little more lift, which is what I like. Inhale. Exhale. Crescent lunge. Exhale, release that back knee to the ground, untuck the toe. Low lunge. And then sliding your hips back. Extending that front leg out long, so straightening your knee. You're going to flip the front toes up toward your shins. Walk your blocks back toward you. Press into those blocks to grow tall through the crown of the head. This is key here. And then exhale to hinge forward at the hips and find a little length throughout the back of the leg. So this pose is not about how far your upper body can come down. It's actually about how tall you can get yourself, how long you can get the spine. Before you hinge forward, puts your pelvis in a nice position to experience a good stretch. On your next exhale, go ahead and bend that front knee, shifting your weight forward. Slide the blocks up to the top of your mat. Okay, you're going to tuck that back toe to hover the knee once again, and step off of that back foot to come up to the top of your mat. Bending those knees, inhale, come on up to a flat back. And then exhale, bending both knees, sweep the arms up overhead, and then take the hands to heart center, mountain pose. Other side, shift your weight onto your left foot. Step the right one back, toe turns out. Feet are on railroad tracks. We square off the hips to the front of your mat. Bend your front knee, draw the belly into the spine, and then sweep the arms overhead. Try to keep those shoulders away from the ears. Couple breaths here. And then exhale, take the hands down to the floor or your blocks. We can spiral around on that toe so that both toes point forward. Keeping both feet on railroad tracks still to widen your base of support. Go ahead and flip your blocks up onto the tall side. Press into those blocks to peel the chest up. Take a couple of long breaths here. I really feel a nice stretch throughout the front of the hip. And then exhale to release that back knee to the ground, untucking the toe. Sliding the hips back, slide your blocks back towards you, and then extend that leg out long in front of you, flipping the toes up toward the shins. Press into the blocks to grow tall through the crown of the head, and then exhale to hinge forward at the hips. Feeling that stretch throughout the back of the leg. Should be a gentle stretch, not a strain. And then bending that front knee, shifting your weight into that front foot. Okay, we're going to come onto our seat here. So whatever graceful way you can get there. And you want to have your yoga strap nearby. And maybe your blanket for your head for our Shavasana. So first, extending both legs out nice and long, working on our hip flexor strength. You're going to hug your left knee into your chest. Inhale to grow tall, lengthening the spine. Draw your toes up to the shins and hover that foot off of the ground. We're going to draw circles going in a clockwise direction for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then the other direction for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release the foot to the ground. Don't be discouraged if the foot has a difficult time coming off of the ground. Just by you creating that action in the muscle, even if it's you just holding that leg up a little tiny bit, you're still getting some work done in the hip. So honor your body in that way. This will get easier as your strength starts to build. Okay, other side, hugging that right knee into the chest, extending that left leg out long. Grow tall through the crown of the head. And hover that left leg off the ground. If you can, draw circles going in a clockwise direction for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then release, going the other direction for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, release. Bend both knees, taking the feet flat to the ground, scoot your bottom toward your heels. Hugging the backs of the thighs. We'll lift through the crown of the head, reach both fingertips forward. Begin to lower down, keeping that core active, keeping the spine long. Trying to hold and have control all the way down. When you feel like you can't go anymore, you can go ahead and release everything to the ground. Just letting the arms rest, the legs let go. Take up that space and find your breath. Feels so good to let go. Bending both knees, taking the feet flat to the ground. We're going to find our bridge pose. If it helps you for alignment, you can actually place a block between the knees, or imagine that you have a block between your knees. So we want the feet, the knees, and hips all in line with each other. Walk the heels up towards your bottom so that we're not straining your hamstrings. Press the palms into the ground, send the hips up to the ceiling. Squeeze those glutes to keep the hips lifted. Walk the fingers close to each other, lace them. Press the fingers down toward the heels. Rock onto your left shoulder and tuck your right shoulder under your body. Rock onto the right shoulder and tuck the left shoulder under the body. So that's how we find our bridge pose with the shoulder expansion. So this is great for posture, great counter stretch. Keep lifting up at the hips and don't let the knees flare out to the side. So we want to keep them in line with the hips. Continue to find your breath. On your next exhale, release both hands from under your hips and lower down one spinal segment at a time until the hips are the last thing that comes down to the ground. Grabbing onto your yoga strap, coming into supine hand to toe, an extended supine hand to toe. We're looping that yoga strap around the balls of the feet. Straightening that knee, draw the toes up to the shins. So with this pose, we want the knee to be straight, even if that means your leg has to come down toward the ground. And this is just a reflection of the length that is in the hamstring. We don't want to force anything, especially in the hamstring, because hamstring strains are pretty common in our yoga practice. So honor that in your body. Root that left hip down to the ground. Use the core as you begin to lower that right leg out to the side. Plug in your right shoulder so we're not hanging out on the shoulder joint. Now, keep that left hip glued to the ground. You'll feel that core engage. You'll still feel a stretch in the inner thigh. On your next exhale, release to come back up to center and switch out your feet. You might notice one leg is a little different than the other. Draw the toes up to the shins, straighten the knee. Take a couple of breaths here, creating length in the back of your leg. And then on your next exhale, root the right hip down to the ground and lower that left leg out to the side. The leg does not need to go down to the floor. The whole key here is to get some stability in the core as you're moving your hips. Plug in that left shoulder. And on your next exhale, release to come back up, moving that yoga strap off to the side. If you want, you can grab your yoga blanket or anything else that you might need for Shavasana. Getting comfortable here, you can extend the legs out long or keep them bent, whatever feels nice. Making any little adjustments, and then closing the eyes. Find some relaxation throughout the entire body. Relaxing the forehead, the jaw, your neck, the shoulders, letting the arms melt into the ground below you. Releasing tension in the chest, the low back, and the hips. Relax the pelvic floor, and let the legs melt into the ground below you. Feel that relaxation all the way down to the tips of your 10 toes. Take a couple of moments here in silence to work on your breath. And when you feel ready, you can invite some movement back into the body by wiggling the fingers and the toes. And at your own pace, rolling over onto one side, propping yourself up to a seated position. Sitting tall through the crown of the head as you root your sits bones down into the ground below you. You're welcome to stay in Shavasana or meditation for as long as you would like. Otherwise, you can bring your hands to heart center. Thank you for this practice. Namaste.